Your hand will hold me still, even when my world is shaking. Your hand will hold me still. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made.
Well, hello and welcome to our Tuesday night theology chat with Chumpy. Ouch. I need to clean off my desk. So, theology chat with Chumpy on Tuesday nights. What we do typically for this is we take the sermon on Sunday morning and we try and take a look at some of the theological concepts behind what Pastor Melissa was talking about. We try to define some terms, explain some theology that she was talking about, and answer any questions that may have come up from the sermon. So if you wind up having a question about the Sunday sermon, send that question to Pastor Melissa or myself, and I will try and address that on Tuesday night. Or if you have a question that you come up with tonight related to the sermon, in case my dad's watching, you can go ahead and put that in the comments and I'll try and address that, or I'll get back to it later if I don't have the answer on me right now. So all that said, what we're going to do over the next few weeks is going to be a little bit different because we just started this series about Moses, and so we are going to be taking the next I forget how many weeks it is, but we're going to be taking basically from now until Advent, and we're going to be going through the story of Moses. And so even with that time, it's going to be a little bit of a speed run, if you will. So we're not going to be able to hit everything. So what I thought I would do on Tuesday nights is try and flesh out or fill in some of the gaps that we have from the story that we don't get to maybe on a Sunday morning. So that's what we're going to try and do basically from now until Advent, which Advent is starting. Let me look at the calendar. I can't remember if it's the last week of November this year or the first week in December. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's the last Sunday in November is when Advent starts. So, in case you were wondering, Christmas is that close. Anyway, with all that, we're going to jump in. So, Pastor Melissa started in the story of Exodus, or the book of Exodus, sorry, and she started at Exodus 1 because that's where we're at. We went through the first 3 chapters of Exodus as far as how far we got in the story. But just to give a little bit of background, we talked about Joseph a month or so ago. Probably longer than that. But we talked about Joseph on Sunday mornings and his story. And one of the things that happened at the end of that story was this famine came. Egypt was gonna be gripped by this famine. A lot of people were gonna die. But Joseph was able to interpret these dreams and came up with a plan. And basically Joseph was the hero of the story. Joseph winds up saving all of Egypt, and his family comes in from Canaan, and he winds up saving his own family as a result. So Joseph, the Israelites, his family, they're all big heroes basically in Egypt. I was just online, I saw apparently there's a canal in Egypt that's called the Waterway of Joseph. I had never heard of that before, but apparently it's allegedly named after him. So, interesting. Anyway, long story short, Joseph's the big hero. His family is the big hero. The Israelites are the big heroes of that story. So, how do they go from being these big heroes then to all of a sudden in a couple, not even a whole chapter, a couple paragraphs, the Israelite people are enslaved and being oppressed and beaten by the Egyptians? Well, basically what happens is there is a leadership change in Egypt. But before that happens even, so Joseph's family comes down to Egypt. They settle there. And they start living there because Joseph has set up all these things to take care of people in the midst of this famine. And as they are doing that, they set up shop, basically. There's a town called Goshen, or an area called Goshen, rather. Let me pull that up there. That's about where Goshen is. It's the northeast corner of Egypt, right near Cairo, and just west of the Sinai Peninsula. And the Israelite people kind of set up camp there, and that's where they settled. And so they were doing life, they were living their lives there in Goshen, and they continued to grow. Pastor Melissa talked about on Sunday that God told these people to go multiply, and they did. They started multiplying. And later on, like, a bunch of time has passed, and this new Pharaoh has come into power, and he knows nothing about what Joseph had done for him. It says in the Bible, in that first chapter, let me see if I have that pulled up here. Yeah. It says, now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. So this has been quite a long time. You think about Joseph was probably a young adult at the time. And so you think about a lifetime's worth of people, that generation. They've all died off. So 50, 60, 70, 80 years has passed maybe. And the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increasing in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So essentially what's going on here is these Israels have taken up residence in Egypt. This new guy, this new leader, doesn't know about the way they've helped Egypt, and he sees them as a threat. He's afraid of them. He's like, look, we got to take care of these people, not in a good way. We got to get these people kind of under our control. And so what they do is they start enslaving the Israelites and oppressing them in all kinds of different ways. The fact there that he says, where is it? Or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, they'll join our enemies. Apparently they were afraid of the amount of Israelites here. And so that kind of leads into the next part of the story there, where we basically started on Sunday morning. So this was all kind of background for where we went Sunday morning. So we started off Sunday morning with the birth of Moses, and we showed that scene from a movie where Pharaoh had decreed that all the newborn boys, the Israelites, are to be thrown in the Nile River. Basically, he's doing what we would call ethnic cleansing. They don't want more of these Israelites in Egypt, and so they're killing off the babies. So they kill off the boys because they can have more babies. They can have more babies than a woman at a time, and so kill them off, and then we won't have to worry about this next generation of Israelites coming up. So they start throwing babies into the river, start killing Israelites, continuing to oppress God's people. Moses had just been born, And his parents obviously did not want to do this, and so his mom hid him in a basket, and then as the story goes, they put him into the river and let him float down to where he was picked up by the Pharaoh's family. Did she know how that was going to work out? We don't know. In the movie that we watched, the little scene that we watched, the sister, Moses' sister, kind of follows along the riverbank there just to kind of keep an eye on him. And actually, it says in the Bible that his sister kind of did that. It didn't say she followed along the bank, but followed to see what was going to happen. And so I don't think this was a case of, well, here you go, Moses, be gone. I want to think that there was a little bit of conniving going on here to say, okay, I think if we do this, maybe he'll land at the Pharaohs and maybe they'll take care of him, or someone will take care of him. And so that's why the sister went along to check on him. So that's what happens with the birth. That's how Moses winds up in the household of Pharaoh. And he's basically raised by Pharaoh. His family, he's raised in royalty, I should say. And so Moses grows up in that life, in that privilege of the royal family, in the privilege of the ruling race of people in Egypt. He doesn't have to undergo the oppression that all the other Israelites are going through all this, because he was given this childhood in the royal palaces. And so that was his childhood. At some point, he comes to realize who he is. He's a Hebrew, and he starts to. There's a lot that we are not told in this story. It kind of jumps from one thing to the next, and all of a sudden Moses is an adult now. He's realized, okay, I'm a Hebrew and these are my people. And then he starts seeing the oppression that's going on. He starts seeing his people being beaten and being made to be slaves and just treated horribly. And so what happens is he's finally seen what's going on, and he sees an Egyptian beating one of the Israelites, and he winds up killing the guy. Now, the interesting thing, I was just reading through this story again this week, and the interesting thing that I had never noticed before, and that's just a side trail there. That's something about the Bible, is you can read it a million times, and every time that you read the Bible, you're going to pick something out that you're like, oh, I never really noticed that was there before. So this was what I've noticed this time around that I had never noticed before. So when it's talking about when Moses kills this guy, this Egyptian, it says that he looks left and he looks right to make sure that like nobody's watching. So he knows what he's going to do. Like that never got through my head before. Like I just sort of assumed that this was some heated thing going on and he gets caught up in the moment and then kills the guy. But no, he looks around to make sure that nobody's going to see what he's doing. So he kills this Egyptian that's beating on the Hebrew. And then he buries him and kind of tries to hide what's going on. But word gets out among the Israelites. Word gets out to Pharaoh. And so the next time Moses is talking to one of the Israelites, he's saying, look, you guys can't be fighting among each other. Like, that's not helpful. And the Israelite says back to him, like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to kill me like that other guy you just killed? And all of a sudden, Moses realizes that what he thought he was able to hide is not so hidden. all these Hebrews know about it. The Pharaoh finds out about it, and so he sets out to try and get Moses. And so basically Moses is like, all right, I gotta split. I gotta flee the country. And so what he does is he goes to, it says, the land of Midian. And so if you look at the map here, Moses started up, let me see, up here. This is really hard to point opposite of the direction. But Moses started up here in Goshen, okay? And so we really don't know what path he took. But this is one possibility, is he comes down through the mountains. Yeah, it was premeditated, Debbie. And he goes through the Sinai Peninsula, which he has to go through there to get to Midian. And then Midian is this area, whoops, not that direction, this area over here on the Arabian Peninsula. So you think about the Sinai Peninsula, it's that triangle shape in the middle. Midian is the land just east of that. And so he goes there. This is like where he's gone to take refuge and kind of hide out from Pharaoh to make sure that he doesn't get killed. And in the process of doing all this, he's sitting there one day at a well, and these shepherds come up and they run off these girls that were trying to get water. And I don't know, maybe Moses was a ladies' man, but he kind of helps them out and runs off the shepherds so that they can get their water for their animals. And the girls go back to their dad. They tell him about this guy that saved them from these shepherds. And the dad's like, wait, you didn't invite him? Now, interesting point here. Hospitality is, you cannot overstate how important hospitality is in the biblical cultures. So if this guy had done this for his daughters, like obviously, yeah, we need to invite this guy over for dinner. We need to treat him well, be hospitable towards him. So that's what they do. They invite him in. Long story short, because really it is short, it's only like a paragraph or so in the Bible. Moses winds up marrying one of the daughters, and so he starts this new life in Midian. Okay, now he's all the way over here, way far away from Egypt, and he's tending animals, the herds of his father-in-law. And so this is when he's out taking care of the animals, and he sees this burning bush. And so this is when God calls him to go back to Egypt and to free his people. Now, interesting little bit of, I don't know, maybe not trivia, but information. Where is Mount Sinai? There is a mountain I wish I could show you my cursor on the map. There is a mountain in the Sinai Peninsula. If you look on that map there is a little dot and it says Rephidim. It's right around there in the southern, I want to point, but you can't see my finger. There's a Mount Sinai there. Okay, that is where the early church kind of said, okay, this is where Mount Sinai was, based on some folklore and basically word of mouth saying, yeah, this is where Sinai was. But if you go and you read through the story of Moses, the burning bush is on Mount Horeb, which Mount Horeb is also referred to as Sinai. And so there's people that think Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb being the same thing, is actually over here in Midian. And so if you look at the map, it actually calls that Mount Sinai. I don't know which one's correct. I don't know that anybody's really going to be able to say which one's correct because it's been a long time. Actually, here you go. This top picture is the Mount Sinai that is in the Sinai Peninsula. The bottom picture is the one that is in Midian. And so that would have been, well, if these stories are to be believed, this would have been where Moses was out tending his flocks, his father-in-law's flocks, I should say, and he saw this bush, and it was burning, but it was not being consumed. And so that was where he goes up. He has this encounter with God, and God calls him to go back to Egypt to set God's people free. Okay. Now, what does all this have to do with any of us? Well, when I look at this story of Moses, he was born into a bad situation. Okay. His people were in a bad situation. The things that he didn't improve his situation. He killed a guy. And so he's running from the law. He's on the lam, and he's out taking care of animals in the desert. Okay. This is a good, what do they call that? Don't do what I do sort of story. But in the middle of all that, God shows up and he's like, Moses, I want to use you to go free my people. All right. Now you think about our lives and all the things that, like, none of us was raised, well, I don't know, maybe there is somebody watching, but I highly doubt it. None of us was raised as royalty. None of us was living in a palace growing up. We've all done stupid stuff. Maybe we haven't killed a guy, but we've all done stupid things, made bad decisions that we weren't proud of. And all of us have run from responsibility before. And so it's easy for us to think, well, okay, I'm too big of a screw up. God can't use me. Well, God goes to this guy that just killed somebody not that long ago and says, I'm going to use you to free the Israelites. And Moses winds up becoming like the figure of the Old Testament. Like if you look over the story of the entire Old Testament, there aren't many, maybe one or two that gets close, but there aren't many that come close to the importance of Moses in the story of the Israelites. And so this all from a guy who at this point in his story probably thought he was the biggest wash up ever. And so when we look at our own stories, like, we should never think that we're beyond God being able to use us. Okay? So that is kind of just a little bit of extra from Sunday. And that's kind of what the plan is for the next so many weeks, is to take and fill in some spots maybe that we don't get to on Sunday, or if I can find some. I love when I can do stuff like this with actual pictures of the locations. When I can do that, I will. And I don't know. We'll see what all we have as we walk through Moses' story. So that's all for this week. I will see you Sunday, and as always, 10:30 on Sunday morning. Bring your mask, wash your hands, be careful. Bye-bye.